hopefully that has started recording. So thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. We want to talk about shifting the mindset with summer and essentially flip the script on that pressure we all feel around looking a certain way and feeling good for summer, without having to go through a crash diet, have all those panic workouts and feeling that anxiety around being in a bikini, essentially. So please keep cameras on, have a notepad, engage with the discussion. This is a safe space, so please be open and honest and respect each other as we move through and the questions at the end. So just to start us off, key messages from this session. What we really want is that this is not about fixing yourself, but it's about reclaiming your energy, your confidence, and your well-being. And ultimately, we know how busy corporate women are and some of the pressures and the challenges that we face in those roles around long hours, high expectations. There's a performance culture and having that constant pressure from clients and projects and everything like that. So ultimately, what we want to talk about here is our health and how we want this to showcase that summer isn't a deadline. You have deadlines in your projects, but summer isn't something that you have to work towards and then it's done. We want to think longer term than that and actually think more holistic around our health, and not feeling like we have to hustle and really drive towards a deadline, but also that our bodies aren't projects. So we might work in projects at work and we're building something, but our bodies aren't like that. And you don't have to earn your place to be in a bikini in a swimming pool on your holiday. So what we really want the themes for today to be are around you can have fitness and health and confidence without punishment and without having to shrink yourself to the smallest version of yourself. So really want you all to drop any guilt and any perfectionism for this time and really think about what you can do wider than just the summer. So one thing I've started noticing online is there's lots of summer shreds, 6-week shreds. I really want to drop this. I don't like this term at all, and I think it breathes wrong culture. Also that there's 6 weeks to tone and tighten, your holidays come in. We want to get rid of that. 6 weeks to transform our bodies. Again, get rid of it. We don't want to see that. We don't want that mindset in everything that we're talking about, because ultimately it leads us to failing. And what Molly and I have seen and I've been through ourselves, and I see it a lot with other people in my life, is ultimately every year you see so many of us trying to push for this perfect holiday, and then we all end up burnt out, we're more hungry, we feel so discouraged by the process and actually becoming so disconnected with our own bodies. So really want to change the mindset and the language around preparing for summer. So firstly, we want to talk about why crash diets are keeping you stuck. And really, this isn't about willpower at all. There are some reasons why, some biological reasons why the crash diet just doesn't work and can really end up leading to you not progressing further with your goals. So firstly, there's a metabolic rebound, right? So if you cut your calories really, really low, and it's an extreme cut, what that can do is send our body into a bit of shock, can slow the metabolism down. It actually can increase our hormones and make us feel more hungry. And if you've ever done this and you've crashed, I can guarantee that weight came back on straight away, because there's such a crash. And then our body then shocks and goes, okay, you're starting eating again. And we come back out the other side, and it's such a V. And that is just because our body, fight or flight mode is a real thing, and our body needs fuel. And if we're suddenly cutting it, our bodies don't know what to do about it. So it sends our hormones levels awry. So that's one reason why the crash diets don't work. Next, we have a stress element. So we all operate in high pressure environments. We're on an elevated stress level generally. with our work, at home, kids, relationships, social life, etc. So if we're adding additional stress onto our body by crashing our diets, dropping our calories really, really low, what that's ultimately going to do is also cause our stress hormones to increase. And with cortisol, if our cortisol levels remain high, that can disrupt our sleep, our mood, all the hormones that regulate our appetite, so we can start feeling more hungry if you've ever not slept very well and then feel really, really hungry the next day. And that's our hormones that are doing that. So crash dieting again can impact our levels of stress and ultimately can cause higher stress. And one thing that neither me and Molly are about is an all or nothing thinking. So short-term shreds ultimately are focusing on it's all in, we're doing everything all at once. And it's teaching sort of a perfectionism culture. And what that's not doing is building any habits for you. And when life gets busy next time around, that plan is going to fall away because you're not giving yourself that breathing space to allow for any flexibility because you're all in. And then when it's not there, you swing back the other way. And what we really need is a bit more of a balance than that. The identity. So talk to my clients about not being outcome focused, but trying to have a goal based on our identity. And fat loss is way more successful when we switch from thinking about what we want to achieve and actually how we want to feel and how we want to be. So instead of thinking, I want to drop 10 kilos, I want to be a healthy woman, means we are resonating far better with that than it just being an arbitrary number. And the summer shreds, etc., they don't have any identity element. They are so fixated on an outcome, short-term outcome. And what we really need is the ability to be able to pause, adjust, and flex to achieve the outcome and the identity that we want to be. So just going to pause a sec, asking the group, something for you to think about is what's one diet, program, etc. that you've ever tried, I'm sure there's many between us all, that you have felt is impossible to maintain, and reflecting on why that was impossible to maintain based on what I've just touched on there. How many of those points were apparent in that diet or that program? So just something for you all to think about. Next thing I want to talk about is how we can stop. We're also guilty of self-sabotaging, and actually how to stop self-sabotaging from impacting our progress with fat loss. So firstly, what we need to think about is not being restrictive, and confidence grows when we have confidence in ourselves, consistency, and we have aligned choices. So it's been shown that confidence comes from evidence and actions and not aesthetics. So when we start to make small promises to ourselves, our brain builds trust in ourselves for our ability to be able to follow through on those actions. So what we need to be able to do is make our bodies believe that it's capable of achieving what it is that we want to achieve. So that's why we need to keep building on the habits and the actions, and then the confidence will come from that. We also want to switch the dial on not thinking about punishment, but about partnership. So I've been guilty of doing this many times in my life, thinking I've had this really big meal, or I'm going out for a meal with my friends, I've got this holiday coming up, oh my God, I have to go and burn this off. Whereas actually, if we shifted the thinking and went from I need to burn this off to what does my body actually need fuel-wise today to feel stronger, we're then working in partnership with our body, not punishing it for something that we've already done. So just a very slight shift there on the way we think about things. Another thing is the myth around needing to do more cardio. I did a session with my clients recently about this, how there is this thinking that we need to be pounding the streets and doing more cardio to burn more fat. yes, in the short term that does happen, but hours of cardio just leads to us feeling more tired, more hungry. And if we do loads of cardio regularly, we do hit a bit of a plateau. Our bodies become less effective at burning that fat. So it becomes essentially less effective. And you don't need to feel like you have to be sweating in order to measure how successful a workout has been. Sweating is just our body's way of regulating its temperature, and it shouldn't be a measure for success. What we really need to be thinking about is strategic cardio. I'm not here to say that we shouldn't do cardio at all, because I would be hypocritical of me to do that. But we need to be thinking about strength training, walking, and equally recovery as a package. That is a much better formula for achieving our fat loss goals than just hitting hours of cardio. And then the final thing to think about to stop us self-sabotaging is fueling rather than restricting. So as I mentioned, we really need to think about what we're eating as fuel. So we need to be eating enough protein, the right carbs, and fats. Fats are important as well. This is all going to help stabilize our energy, our mood. And under fueling can lead to other health issues. So if we go on these crash diets, yes, we might lose weight and look great for 1 week of the year, but actually that could lead us to other health issues, which might not be apparent at the time. So something else to just be in the mix, that we really need to be fueling to support our bodies. So just a couple of little practical tools just to think about before I hand over to Molly. Just one quick one is first quick check-in in a morning. Put it to 3 minutes, but however long you have to spare on this, could be 5-10 minutes, is how do you want to feel today? Really, like, what does this look like for you? And what's one action that you can do to support that feeling? And then look at how you can then action that throughout the day. Next one is just a bit of another practical tool around confidence. So as just mentioned, that confidence comes from evidence. So taking that small action, reflecting on it, getting the evidence, trusting yourself and the process with that, then seeking the confidence that comes with it, and then repeating, and we can just go round in that loop. So a couple of things to think about to essentially stop self-sabotaging yourself and your progress. So I'm now going to pass over to Molly, who's going to talk about a routine.
Thank you. I just wanted to add as well, in terms of what we've been going through, and I think the biggest thing with these types of diets, but also short-term thinking, is it can really impact your self-confidence, but also self-trust. And what Kerry was saying there is the more that we think about these short-term extreme changes, the more we're likely to fail because they're not sustainable. And the more you feed this negative loop of, I don't do the things I follow through with, and then that impacts your confidence. And if your confidence is low, even from a weight loss perspective, you're going to be making decisions completely on emotion, not logic. So the bigger issue with these kind of diets as well is, again, your relationship with you and your thoughts, and not feeling in control of the changes you need to make. So with that, what does it look like to make to create a sustainable routine when it comes to fat loss? So the first one would be start with structure, not restriction. So being really realistic with what is a healthy structure, you know, from a fuel perspective, what does my body need? So 3 balanced meals are very simple, but so important. And as Kerry said, making sure they're as balanced as possible, and reduce snacking. And you might be listening to this now thinking, I don't snack. I bet if you took pictures of everything that you have each day, you snack way more than you think you do, potentially quite mindlessly. And that can just put your body into constant hunger loops. Your blood sugar is out of whack, and it's really hard to eat intentionally and balance your appetite. So really anchoring back to basics that I'm sure our grandparents would do, of 3 main meals, eating them mindfully and making sure that they're balanced. The second one is regulate your body, not just your food. So you might be experiencing craving, overeating inconsistently, and often that is a nervous system response. And as Carrie said, a lot of these quick fix diets can actually put your nervous system into an imbalance. So it's important that outside of just what you're eating, you're focusing on sleep, slowing down, regulating, something that these diets do not focus on. So you could be in a huge calorie deficit, but if you're not sleeping well, your appetite increases. If you're particularly stressed at work, you are going to turn to food as comfort. You know, there's such a, I would say, out of anything, actually wanting to get to your weight loss goal and sustaining it is all about how you regulate yourself. The third one is, as Carrie said, identity. Identity is so important because identity influences our behaviors and our habits. So you could decide to incorporate a few changes, but actually, if you don't think you're that person who can sustain them, you won't sustain them. And this is where we see that up and down roller coaster. So shifting from I'm trying to lose weight to I'm someone who eats in a way that supports my energy and life. And this is where you can hear more that partnership language than the kind of punishment language. The other one is use restraint, not restriction. And I think both Kerry and I would be hypocrites if we, you know, sat here and said we didn't ever have a weight loss goal or want to get to a particular weight. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the approach and the mindset that you have when you're on that journey. And there's a huge difference between applying restraint versus restriction. Restriction is I can't have things. Restraint is I can have it if I want to, but do I need to have all of it now? So you don't need to cut out everything. You need to learn when it's worth it to have something rather than it being mindless or emotionally fueled. And this removes that all or nothing thinking. And then finally, I think it's finally, keep it boringly consistent. You know, I'm sure people have seen this online, and I'm a huge advocate now with my habits. Like, they are really boring. Like, I eat the same thing for breakfast pretty much every day. I eat 2 or 3 things on lunch every single day. And yeah, often people say it's boring, but that allows me to spend time and energy on other things that really matter. It takes away all that decision fatigue, and it just means I can get into this rhythm so much easier. So when motivation drops, I don't even need to think about what I'm going to have because it's already there. And progress comes from what you do on normal days, not perfect ones. And then what we wanted to show you was how to enjoy your holiday, you know, because you were probably thinking, yeah, but I'm going on holiday, and what does this look like? And when I go on holiday, how do I be sustainable when it's completely out of my normal routine? And what we mean by that is, you know, what are some of the intentions that you can bring in to still enjoy your holiday, but also not go to this all or nothing thinking? Because as soon as you come back, you're then going to feel crap. You're going to feel like you've overdone it. You're going to want to jump back on this bandwagon of how do I be restrictive? And that just feeds this up and down loop. So on the next slide, there's a graph, and this is diet culture. You know, yeah, you might see a massive decline, but then as soon as you're back off your holiday, you're putting on so much weight. And then straight away after that, you're back on a diet. It's going up and down and up and down. So yeah, overall, their weight is up. Yeah, it has gone down. But over the course of the year, you've been on a huge roller coaster, which for your nervous system is really unhelpful. But also the amount of energy to sustain this kind of lifestyle is really draining. So what we're looking for more on the next slide is something that's more consistent. And often what people think is weight loss is a straight down trajectory. It's not. No one has ever seen that, especially as women. There's lots of things that can impact our weight, but what consistently looks like is, okay, there's a trajectory of you going down, but yeah, there's sometimes that goes up, goes down, but there is that journey of heading down over time. So what's some tools as you're going into holiday then to support with this? So the biggest question I would ask is, how do you want to feel when you come back off your holiday? Do you want to feel energized, refreshed, inspired, rested? If you are, is drinking every day, eating everything on your all-inclusive, doing no movement, is that really going to get you there? Or is that something that you think you should do because of that all or nothing thinking? Traffic light system. So red, amber, I've put album there, but it should be amber, green, is to think about your meals. So I'm sure when you go on holiday that not every meal is really that important to enjoy. Some of them are fuel. Say you're going out for the day and you just need some breakfast to get you through the day. There's nothing about that occasion that really connects to food. So how can you apply a bit of restraint and think, okay, this is more a meal for fuel. How do I make it as balanced as possible? But then agreeing, they're meals that you really want to enjoy. Maybe a nice restaurant, maybe you want to have a bottle of wine with your partner, whatever it is. And then you really enjoy that meal. And I promise you, as you start to use these colors, you'll actually enjoy the greens way more because they feel intentional. Mindfully eating. I think that's the biggest one, to just be mindful, listen to your hunger cues, ask yourself when you're full, be present with your food, not on autopilot. Incorporate movement into the holiday. You don't have to go on the walk on your own. Can you bring your kids along? Can you take your partner? Can you decide to do a hike? Can you walk along the beach? It doesn't have to, these habits don't have to be separate to the life that you're living. And then 80-20. 80% of the time we try and eat as balanced as we can. That's the kind of food that makes us feel energized, confident, sleep well. And then that 20% is also the time that you enjoy. So even just using that metric to think, okay, how am I going to spread that across my holiday? And as we've said throughout, but just a reminder, what food is for fuel, what food is for fun. So what food do you really want to enjoy, and make sure you do? And then what is more to support you feeling as good as you can? So just a couple of tools for you to take into your holiday. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks for that, Molly. So just to round us off, a quick little recap on what we've discussed. So ultimately, the purpose of this webinar was just to give you some tips and tricks and help you stop feeling that all or nothing, I have to go into my holiday and I have 6 weeks to get there. What we really want you to be thinking about is, how can you build habits that are sustainable all year round? You don't need to be shrinking yourself as small as possible for 1 week of the year. What you really want to be thinking about is, how can you build energy and strength and respect for yourself in a longer term game. And what we want to do is really choose routines and habits that support the identity of what we want to become, so that we are less focused on the actual outcome, and actually who we want to be is a way more powerful tool and mindset to have. And it can help us get away from the all or nothing mindset. And as Molly said, really start trying to think about that traffic light system when it comes to your holiday. I personally am going to do this next time I go away, because I think it can be a really powerful tool, and just really thinking about enjoying our holidays and enjoying the summer, but without all of that pressure, and knowing that when we come back, our plan is there and we can get back on track, and nothing is undone from enjoying ourselves on that trip. So thank you all so much for listening. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we can open up to any questions. If I can